Good morning, and thank you for enjoying it with a six-pack, the Scotty Six-Pack, the only podcast that's bringing you the top stories in Wisconsin sports every single day. Plus, we do it in less time than it takes to complete your morning commute. I am Kedrick Stumbris, your host, and you can follow me on Twitter or X or honestly Threads, where I think we're going to be doing a lot more work in the near future at Kedrick Stumbris, and follow the podcast at Scotty Six-Pack to get the latest updates in Wisconsin sports. If you're watching here on YouTube, or if you just want to catch the podcast on YouTube, you can find us there by looking up Scotty Six-Pack, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. It helps us grow the show and continue the conversation with other Wisconsin sports fans. First, I want to catch you up on what happened with the Milwaukee Brewers game tonight, just very briefly. And then we're going to talk Wisconsin Badgers football and some preseason predictions I have for statistical leaders for the Badgers this upcoming year. First, the Milwaukee Brewers dropped in a game against the Cincinnati Reds last night, in a game that was frustrating, much like game one of the series was. Milwaukee had base runners in every single inning in the game. Milwaukee reached base, I believe it was in every single inning in game one of the series as well, and required a walk-off to win it. But Milwaukee lost last night 4-3 to the Reds, reducing their lead in the division down to just half of a game. And that's tough because in the ninth inning, Brewers entered down 4-0, managed to, although having their first two players at the plate record outs, managed to bring it all the way to 4-3 with a nice walk by Sal Frelick, also getting on base after that by Blake Perkins, and then Christian Yelich continuing to be hot. He smashes a 3-run home run in the ninth, but just wasn't quite enough at the end of the day. Tough outing for the Milwaukee Brewers, who just could not convert when they really needed to. But let's talk some Wisconsin Badgers football preseason predictions. I published an article yesterday over on Badger Notes, a website I would love for you to bookmark. We do great work over there. Dylan Graff does a great job running that site. Jake Meyer, our managing editor, does a lot of great work over there as well, keeping us all together. We just got a ton of great writers over there. Jared Guerrera, one of my favorites as well, does a lot of good work in the recruiting space for Wisconsin football. But last night I published an article that talks about my preseason predictions for the statistical leaders on offense and defense for this Wisconsin Badgers team. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about who is going to lead this team in, passing yards, rushing yards, receptions, and then major defensive statistics as well. First, on the offensive side of the ball, passing statistics are going to be led by Tanner Mordecai, unless something goes awry, unless there is a really big issue with Tanner Mordecai being able to transfer up from the group of five, from transferring up from, SMU, being able to convert that into major production at the Power 5 level, then Tanner Mordecai should be able to step in and be QB1 from day one, as he has been given the opportunity to do so. And I think that even though we have somewhat of a limited sample size of quarterbacks transferring up from lower levels of Division One, I think we've seen enough to know that those quarterbacks can be successful. You look at Cameron Ward at Washington State, who was very successful after coming up from the FCS level. Western Kentucky, their quarterback situation, can't remember the name right now. They were very successful bringing up another quarterback from the FCS level to compete at Western Kentucky as well. If Tanner Mordecai can be half of what he was at SMU, throwing for 72 touchdowns in 2 seasons, Wisconsin is going to be very well suited and very pleased with their production at the starting quarterback position. And unless he gets injured, Tanner Mordecai is obviously going to lead all major statistical categories for passing offense. In terms of rushing offense, you have Braylon Allen, who is also the no-brainer pick to lead Wisconsin in rushing touchdowns, rushing yards, and in carries. He's coming into his junior season with just tremendous expectations because a year from now, he will probably be gearing up for NFL training camp. He has amassed over 1,000 yards in each of his first 2 seasons, despite the fact that, not even being 18 years old, as Wisconsin football fans heard over and over again during the 2021 season, he was able to capture the RB1 role when he did not even start the season with it. When he really didn't even start the season guaranteed to be a running back through his career. Obviously, he started the actual regular season as a running back, but he was brought in to the program just as an athlete. We're unsure if he was going to play a linebacker or safety, where he was going to play. But he has taken over the running back role by storm. And now he joins an offense that is being run by Phil Longo, which is going to spread personnel out on offense and hopefully empty the box a little bit for Braylon Allen to be able to succeed impeccably. And that talent that has been amassed by offensive coordinator Phil Longo and wide receivers coach Mike Brown should relieve some of the pressure from not only Braylon Allen, but also Chez Mellusi. And when you look at the production that Phil Longo was able to put together out of some running backs at North Carolina, I think Badger fans should be very optimistic about not the passing offense. I think there's plenty of reason to be optimistic about the passing game for Wisconsin football this year. But frankly, I think the place that Wisconsin football fans can be even more optimistic is out of the running game. Because when Phil Longo has talented running backs, he will run the ball. The last time he had 2 really talented running backs, he produced 2 1,000-yard rushers in the same season at running back. If Wisconsin can spread the defensive personnel out with those wide collegiate hash marks, you should expect some really fantastic production out of the running game between Braylon Allen and Chez Mellusi. Second, my pick for the leader of receptions and receiving touchdowns is not one of the many flashy names out of the wide receiver room. Obviously, you have Chimere Dike coming back, who led the team in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. You have Skylar Bell, who was second in all those major statistical categories last year. And you have new faces like Bryson Green coming in, who was a significant piece as a freshman for Oklahoma State last year. But my pick is tight end Clay Cundiff. Clay Cundiff had 2 seasons ended by just gruesome, what looked like freak injuries to his legs. And assuming he stays healthy, I think Clay Cundiff is going to lead this team in receptions. And that might frankly be me thinking that Tanner Mordecai is going to need a security blanket, maybe more than what will be necessary. But if anybody can be that security blanket, I'm going to bet on Clay Cundiff being that security blanket. Wisconsin's running backs, for example, don't have a lot of experience in the pass game. Braylon Allen and Chez Mellusi have not recorded many receptions out of the backfield since they joined Wisconsin. And Clay Cundiff, although obviously he's not particularly proven, he jumped into his role as the number 1 tight end last season in 2022, trying to replace all of that production that Jake Ferguson was providing. And Clay Cundiff did provide in that role. He had 8 receptions through those first 3 games, and that was just one shy of Chimere DK's team leading 9 receptions through his first 3 games. Of course, in the 4th game in Columbus against Ohio State, he snapped his leg, and his season was unfortunately over. Uh, Clay Cundiff is a really talented tight end, and he can be a go-to guy in the red zone, can create mismatches, and could be a really fantastic uh, option for Tanner Mordecai to pass to this upcoming season. I think the runner-up in terms of who I would project to have the most receptions and the most receiving touchdowns in this season for the Badgers is, of course, Chimere DK, who led Wisconsin in every major statistical category for a receiver last season. Part of the reason that I don't have wide receiver Chimere DK as my projected number one, receiving target and number one on the leaderboard in terms of receiving touchdowns is that I think there is so much depth in this wide receivers room that those targets are going to be spread out. And when Tanner Mordecai needs a check down option, Clay Cundiff is going to be that main option. Clay Cundiff is going to eat up so many of the tight end targets. Clay Cundiff should create so many mismatches that when the Badgers go to just get, 5 yards, Clay Cundiff is going to be there as an option to do that when they don't need to go out and convert on 3rd and 10, when Wisconsin does not need to go out and convert on 2nd and 10. Clay Cundiff is going to be there for, a cheap first down. And while I believe that wide receivers like Chimere DK, like Bryson Green, are going to provide a lot of production for this team, I think the number of targets are going to prevent them from being the receptions leader on this team because those targets are going to be spread out across the wide receiver room. And same with, those targets in the red zone where I think Clay Cundiff is going to absolutely feast. Chimere DK, of course, though, is the returning leader on this, passing offense for Wisconsin football. He led the team in receiving yards, receptions, and receiving touchdowns last season. And frankly, in my opinion, Chimere DK has, day 3 NFL draft upside. He's a great all-around receiver. He has developed fantastically and could be a dark horse pick for an all conference kind of year. My runner-up for receiving yards post Chimere DK, because although I don't think Chimere DK is going to lead the team in receptions or receiving touchdowns, I ultimately do think that he will lead the team in receiving yards just because he has developed into a great route runner over the course of his career in Madison. My runner-up for this is Bryson Green, who I think also has the ability, outside of Chimere DK and, of course, Clay Cundiff, who is my pick to lead the team in receptions and receiving touchdowns. Bryson Green could lead the Badgers in any major receiving category this upcoming season. He didn't participate in spring practice as he was dealing with an injury, but he has the pedigree to lead Wisconsin because he recorded nearly 600 yards in 2022 at Oklahoma State, and that would have been second only to Chimere DK last year. He also had 36 receptions, which would have been only second to Chimere DK on the Badgers last year. Bryson Green is an incredibly talented receiver and should show it this upcoming year for the Wisconsin Badgers football team. Before we transition to the defensive side of the ball and who I think are going to be the statistical leaders over there, I have to tell you about TickPick, which is where I get all of my tickets. I buy all of my tickets for every game I go to on TickPick. I am, excited to go to a number of away games this upcoming year for Packers, for, hopefully the Brewers. Even still, been to, I think there was one away game this year. try to make it out some more. But I got 2 away games coming up for the Green Bay Packers, and I bought both of those tickets on TickPick. This isn't an ad. TickPick is just a service I love, and I want you to save money on your next ticket purchase. When you use TickPick, you will never pay service or delivery fees like you will on other ticket selling apps, and it comes with TickPick's best price guarantee. If you find a better price somewhere else for the same ticket, TickPick will refund you twice the difference in credit toward your next purchase. Twice the difference. Not just get you your money back, get you your money back times 2. Plus, if you use my link in the podcast description, you will save $10 on your first order. So go to the Apple App Store, go to the Google Play Store, just type TickPick in your browser. That's TickPick. Use my link, save $10 on your first purchase, and never pay service or delivery fees or tickets ever again. Coming back over here to Wisconsin Badgers and our preseason predictions for statistical leaders on the defense. We already covered the offense, and I think Tanner Mordecai is going to lead the team in every offensive passing category. Braylon Allen should lead the team in rushing categories, and then a combination of Clay Cundiff and Chimray BK will lead the team in receiving categories. Who I think is going to lead the defense this year in tackles comes at the inside linebacker position. And this shouldn't come as a surprise because Meba Jong-Meta led the team in tackles last year with 95 tackles. Putting that into perspective, the second leading tackler on the team last year was Jordan Turner, who was my pick as the runner-up for the leading tackler. He had 30 fewer tackles than Jong-Meta did last year. And I think that inside linebacker is where Wisconsin is going to get its leading tackler from because, frankly, kind of like we talked about with the Packers, the defensive line talent on this Wisconsin Badgers roster is lacking. They lost a lot between, frankly, just with Keanu Benton, who, didn't provide a ton of tackles, but just was an absolute clog. Plus, Nick Herbig, who took 11 sacks, 15 and a half tackles for loss off the board when he left. There's a lot going there. There's a lot of younger, unproven talent on the defensive line. And while those defensive linemen may be able to slow the run, I don't foresee them bringing rushers down on first contact. And so those tackles are going to have to be made by the inside linebackers. And Jong-Meta just ate up so many of the tackle numbers in 2023 that I think it would be just disingenuous to not predict him as the leading tackler for the Wisconsin Badgers this upcoming season. Second, I have the lead up. I have the runner-up from last year, George Turner, again. Between him and CJ Getz only had 3 fewer tackles than Jordan Turner last season. I think Getz could, kind of repeat that. But I think the Badgers are going to need CJ Getz to act more as a pass rusher this year. And so not necessarily produce that same tackle number as outside linebacker Nick Herbig has gone on to the NFL, along with defensive lineman Keanu Benton, as they have now become teammates with TJ Watt on the Pittsburgh Steelers. That brings me to my predicted leader in sacks. I think it has to be some combination of these outside linebackers, CJ Getz and Darrell Peterson. Darrell Peterson is who I am going to predict as the sack leader for the Wisconsin Badgers this upcoming season. And that's partly because he just has more of an athletic pedigree. He is a consensus 4-star recruit, and CJ Getz has never showcased that kind of natural pass rush ability that Darrell Peterson has in the past. He has a higher upside. Getz is a really reliable tackle. You don't rack up 62 tackles in a season without being a great linebacker. But when we watched Darrell Peterson and CJ Getz, rotate those snaps opposite Nick Herbig in 2022, Daryl Peterson was the clear option of who could replace Nick Herbink's production. I am skeptical that Daryl Peterson can come, close to replacing Nick Herbink's production. And let's be fair here. I don't think it is reasonable for anybody to expect the kind of production that Nick Herbig had, that 15 and a half tackles for loss, those 11 sacks, Big Ten leading numbers, to be exactly what another outside linebacker can produce for the Wisconsin Badgers this upcoming year. But if they can get in the ballpark, that's going to be huge for a defensive line that I think has a lot of questions for Wisconsin this upcoming year. Lastly, the leader on the defense for interceptions. When I was thinking about this, I think about the fact that defensive coordinators often have their positional groups play quite differently depending on the defensive coordinator, depending on the scheme. Are you going to have, off-ball linebackers or defensive coordinators playing some aggressive defense in, pass defense? Are you going to have some aggressive cornerbacks while you rely on safeties to make tackles in case your cornerbacks aren't able to make the play on the ball that you are coaching them to make? Or do you have, your cornerbacks play a little bit safer while your safeties are asked to be more ball hawking? And under defensive coordinator Mike Trussell, in his last 3 seasons as a defensive coordinator, his 2 seasons at Cincinnati, and then his last season as a defensive coordinator at Michigan State, Trussell's defenses produced their leading interception getter, whatever you want to call it, was a safety most recently. Before that, it was a linebacker. And before that, it was a cornerback. So Trussell's defenses, and admittedly, interceptions are kind of a random stat. Turnovers are kind of a random stat. We see that year over year, that they are subject to regression back to the mean. But this seems to be true on Mike Trussell's defenses. So who better to pick for the leader in interceptions on a defense that seems to produce, their leading interceptor from all over the field than the highly talented safety who is going to be playing all over the field for the Wisconsin Badgers this season in Hunter Wohler. Hunter Wohler is going to be playing a crucial role in the dollar position for this defense, playing a pretty true 3-3-5, as Hunter Wohler will, sneak into that small safety or that large safety to small linebacker type role and really play all over the place on the defense. He is, in terms of recruiting rankings, the most highly skilled, like raw talent, raw upside. He has the most recruiting pedigree of any player who will be on this Wisconsin Badgers defensive roster this upcoming season. So it is not surprising to me to see this defense, to see Mike Trussell try to play their most talented player in the most versatile role. You want to give your talented players chances to go get the ball, chances to go make a play. That's what college football is all about. Get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. On the defensive side, if you have a position that is made to just go out and make plays like the dollar position, you got to put a guy in there who is talented enough to go out and make plays. And that's Hunter Wohler. And if anybody is going to be able to go out and make plays on the ball, it's going to be somebody like Hunter Wohler, who showed in spring practice that he can, ball hawk for interceptions. He can go out and rush the passer on occasion, whenever he needs to. This is, I think, going to be the make or break position on the defense for Wisconsin Badgers football this year. Is can Hunter Wohler live up to the expectations that his recruiting rankings, quite frankly, made for him? This is a guy who was a consensus 4-star recruit. Can he play up to that athletic ability? Can he get out there and make plays when this defense needs a stop, when this defense needs a pick, when things aren't going great for the offense? Where's the big play going to come from? I think if Mike Tressel is counting on it to come from anybody, he's counting on it to come from Hunter Wohler. And that's why he is my pick to lead the Wisconsin Badgers in interceptions this upcoming season. That is going to be it today for this edition of the Scotty Six Pack Podcast. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts to start every day with everything you need to know in Wisconsin sports. Before you log off for the day, leave some kind comments, like the stream, subscribe on YouTube. It is free. Hit the bell button and you'll get notifications whenever we upload a new episode, and you'll be able to watch it or listen to it right away to get the latest updates in Wisconsin sports in less time than it takes to complete your morning commute. Also, tell some folks about the show. Helps us grow and helps us create even better content for everyone. Thanks again for listening. I've been your host, Kevin Stavros on Wisconsin.